What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Main Event Comedy Podcast. We're here live on Facebook and YouTube once again, and I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and I'm excited to be joined once again by Mr. Wes Sears and our good friend and brand new permanent co-host, Tyler Fitzgerald. How are you doing, guys?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well. We got to get producer Smokey to update the old intro pretty soon and throw Tyler in there. It took me forever to get him to make that one, so I don't know how soon we'll get him to make a new one, but we will get to work on that very soon. First golf out of the gate, I want to apologize, everybody, for no podcast last week. That was on me. I was extremely sick, and to be quite honest, I'm not back to normal now, but I'm doing well enough to do the podcast tonight and feel as normal as I can feel in the last damn near 2 weeks, it seems. So, but again, apologize. We're going to try to do this every week. So, right now we've been hitting it every other week, just by sheer luck. But we're here. We may be joined by others. We may not. We shall see. But this is the main trio of this current incarnation of the podcast. So, as per usual, we're going to talk a little wrestling. We may even talk a little comedy, but we've got some topics from last week we're going to cover. We got some things that's going on this week we're going to cover. But before we get to all that, I just want to remind everybody: make sure you join us Saturday, March the 23rd, as we return to Atomic Johnny's in Gadsden, as we will be doing another night of stand-up comedy that we've been doing every month there at Atomic Johnny's. Of course, it'll be hosted by myself. Wes Sears will be there. Shane Knowles will be there. Delbert Jenkins will be there. But we'll also be joined by special guests Chase Moat, Keenan Worthington, and Mr. David Lynham. So we're very excited about this show. Should be a lot of fun. As always, the cover is only $10, guys. Can't beat that.
And David's doing good things right now. I
Oh,
mean,
man.
from transitioning from music to comedy, man, he's done a really, really good job, and he's taking it super serious. I mean, he's doing phenomenal. So I'm
Dude,
excited for the show.
he's running 3 or 4 mics a week,
Yeah,
every single week, in Birmingham, Florida. Then he's running shows on top of that. Yeah, David Lynham doesn't know how to do anything half-assed. Like when he does something, he goes at it full bore and hits the ground running, and that's what he's done with comedy. I mean, he's been doing it for about, I don't know, 8 or 9 months, and he's probably got more mic time that 8 or 9 months than some of the part-time guys that have been doing it for 5, 6 years. So kudos to him, and I'm excited to have him and Keenan and Chase joining us this
absolutely.
month for another fun-filled show. Because again, we've talked about it here, we've talked about it there. Me and Wes met up originally at Atomic Johnny's, but another Atomic Johnny's guy, if you will, is our boy Keenan Worthington, and he was there hosting the night that I did my first show with you guys. So exciting to have him back with us. He hasn't joined us since we've been doing these shows here and drawing these crowds. So happy to have him on board so he can see what we've been doing over there.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be exciting, man. I mean, like I said, I mean, we've seen Chase, we've seen Keen. I mean, good comedians that have different styles, and my cat likes to join the podcast as well. But I mean, I'm excited. I mean, it's gonna be a good show. I mean, the last show was phenomenal. I think we're just making our way up.
Yeah, man, it keeps
So
getting bigger and better every time. So please join us on the 23rd and keep checking this podcast out every Sunday night at 9:30. All right, guys. So we're going to get into it right now. We're going to go back in time to last Sunday night. One of my favorite wrestlers growing up, and I'm older than you guys, so I find that my context for some of these guys is a little different from yours, even if you have gone back and watched his old stuff. But I mean, I was a Surfer Stinger fan back in the '80s. I remember watching Clash of the Champions 1 live as he wrestled Ric Flair to that 45-minute time limit draw, and realizing even as an 11-year-old kid, like, oh man, Sting just became a superstar. Like he was, he walked into the Clash on one level, he walked out on a completely different level, and just kept rising from that point on. And so last Sunday night, AEW Revolution, Sting had his retirement match. I told, I made a point to mention this to Wes, so hopefully I would think to do it. So we got put some things on the screen. Producer Smokey's working hard tonight. So a lot of people had speculated going into this match, is Sting just going to come out? Is it just going to be Crow Sting like he's been? We're going to see the return of Surfer Sting. That's what a lot of people was rooting for. And they did a great job throwing everybody a curve. When one of Sting's sons initially comes out in the exact outfit that Sting wore at the Great American Bash 90, again, another pay-per-view I watched live, one of my favorites as a kid. Then suddenly Wolfpack Sting comes out, and we get this scene. And how fun is that? Sting there with his sons, well representing the different, eras of his career. What do you guys think about that?
I thought it was awesome. You have all the the classic, the ultra classic Sting. You got the WCW Stings. You have the current Sting. It was cool. I'm not a huge praiser of AEW, but I thought they did a good job with that.
Yeah. What do you think, Wes?
I'll be honest with you. When I saw the video when Surfer Sting came, I was like, "Is that him?" That looks just like him. And then the Wolfpack one comes, and I'm like, "Oh, that's his sons." And dude, I don't think anybody deserves. That is the best way to send him off. If I would have put $20 down on him losing, because I thought, hey, he's going to lose.
Oh, yeah.
Young Bucks come back in. They get the titles. Okay, thank you, Sting. We appreciate it. Have your moment, And that's what we usually see. Most of the time. But
the minute him and Darby won the tag belts, you're like, okay, he's going to drop the belts in his retirement match, and that's cool. And then when you see he's wrestling the Young Bucks, you're like, okay, that checks out. But all right, man, they haven't, at different times, they've probably undersold themselves. There's other times where maybe they pushed themselves too hard, but I think that was just to kind of right the ship from where they undersold themselves and in the beginning started out just putting over everybody before the national audience even knew who they were to really care who they were. But man, what a moment for his sons. Can you imagine how cool that is? Like growing up, seeing your dad on TV and everything, and to be out there with him in his last match, wearing his gear, and then you're in the ring doing stinger splashes. And kudos to, for all the things you can knock Tony Khan and AEW and the Young Bucks for. And there's plenty. Cornette does a weekly podcast where he spends hours doing that, and rightfully so. In many ways, I think they got this right. Yeah, you can pick apart, aspects of the match, but that's more just a personal preference type thing, and what time period you're from, what you prefer. But though it's the kind of match that Sting's been having through his entire run with AEW. So it's not like Sting's been wrestling old school matches and then all of a sudden we're having a street fight and Darby's, flinging himself off of things and Sting's diving off of things. Like we've been doing this all along. So, in the scheme of it, I didn't have a problem with the match. Of course, as he does, Tony Khan oversold everything. It was the greatest match of all time. It was the greatest pay-per-view of all time. Sting had the greatest career of any professional wrestler that's ever lived in this, lifetime or any other. It's like, all right, Tony, take it easy. So overall, what do you guys think of the choice of the opponents, the match they had, and just, the overall presentation beyond the entrance?
I thought it was pretty good. This is going to probably make me sound really old, but the only critique I had of the match itself had nothing to do with Sting or how they did it. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really like the glass spot.
Oh yeah,
it's just a little too much, I think. It's probably a topic for another podcast, but you can dig into that pretty far. But
maybe they're not, but it felt like to me that maybe we're using Sting's retirement match to one more time thumb our nose at CM Punk.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's
maybe
exactly what it
that's reading too much into it, but it felt like it.
Right. That's the only critique I have of the match, though. I mean, other than that, from what I've seen, I didn't order the pay per view, but what I've seen of it, I mean, I thought it was good, uh, pretty solid, solidly well done. Darby and Sting, they've been together the whole time. I mean, Darby's kind of like is like a mini Sting in a way with his face paint and all that. I mean, they kind of mimic each other. So I thought it was cool that they got to share that moment, and he had his sons, and the opponents were good. They put on a pretty cool match. So yeah, I only had the one critique about the table or the glass spot, but like I said, that's personal preference and
Real
all of that.
glass.
It's one of the things I don't really care much for AEW for. It's all about those shocking moments and not so well thought out. In my opinion, I just feel like you have fans in the front row there. I mean, it's kind of dangerous in a sense.
There's been some stories have come out that there's been some people got some shrapnel off that, and of course, AEW is pointing to that. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been to a show, but I've seen it pictured online where they put that screen they up on the jumbotron of like at your own risk, if you're in the front row, things may fly out, and if it hits you. But I mean, that's not
You're not usually
that
expecting
doesn't
glass.
protect you. Yeah, that doesn't protect you in instances like this. So I hear there are some a couple of kids got hit with glass, things like that may come back to bite them before it's all said and done, and rightfully so, man. It's one thing when you were doing these empty arena things during the pandemic, you could do a lot of wild stuff like that because there was nobody around you. It didn't matter. But man, when you got an arena full, I mean, you got your first packed house that you've had in a long time. I guess basically since Wembley in August. You finally pack a house out in March, and now you're out there breaking glass, and just the unnecessary risks that Darby takes is
And that match
one of
was
those
meant to
things
be
where it's
about
just kind of
Sting.
like, dude, just
Yeah.
don't, man.
And that match was meant to be about Sting, and I felt like that took a lot of the conversation away from it because it was a hot topic.
Yes. I agree 100%. And Wes, I have to assume that you were pretty excited because at different stages of the Main Event Comedy Podcast, but even before the live ones, back when we were doing the recorded ones, the Sting mask has been ever present in the background at different times. So I guess it's no secret that you're a bit of a Sting fan. Pardon me.
Absolutely love him. I mean, I remember having like a WCW tape. I think it was like his documentary back then. But went back to the flat top, blonde hair, Sting to the Crow days, NWO, and all that. And dude, I watched it like 150 times. And I was telling my brother, today about us doing this podcast talking about Sting, and I was like, dude, I got to bring up when I met him because I met him in Dallas, WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
It was his Hall of Fame, and we paid money to go meet Sting, and I'll never forget it. I'm over shaking. As a grown man, and walk up to him, and I'm like, Steve, Sting, thank you, and I'll never forget, like, he just signing it, and he goes, thank you. And it was just so calm and just, like, that's just the presence he would give you, And here's the thing, there's not one negative thing you've ever heard about Sting. To a degree. I mean, as far as in the business, wrestler, I mean, you've never heard anything bad about him. So I'm very thankful for Tony Khan and for the Young Bucks because it was their idea to have him win. And Sting didn't want to. I think that was in Sports Illustrated. It's in that article.
Yeah, well, he more or less said that, on a couple of different occasions. So, I guess that's one thing that I've Cornette kind of alluded to it. A couple of people have talked about it. And we're not going to get bogged down in this, but, being an old school fan and having been involved in wrestling, it is kind of like in an upstart like AEW, the position they were in the last, 5 years, 4 years, whatever they've existed. Typically you bring in guys like that to, give back and give the rub, as they say. And he certainly has done that for Darby Allin. But to leave undefeated, nobody beat Sting during his entire run, and then he retires as a tag team champion. I'm sure they had to probably twist his arm pretty hard to get him to agree with that because he knew being from the generation he is, that he was going to have his critics. So like, really, dude, you didn't put over a single person, then you leave with the tag team titles, winning your last match. Like, what did you really do for anybody besides Darby? And that's something that'll be debated for a long time. But I think Tony Khan's defense to that, and in this case, he may make a good point, is he really took offense to how WWE booked him, with the loss to Triple H at WrestleMania, the buckle bomb debacle with Seth Rollins that nearly crippled him. He didn't have a stellar run in WWE by any stretch of the imagination at all. So I think maybe Tony Khan went out of his way to make sure that he looked like an absolute superstar through his entire run. And if that's the reason, all right, I can respect that. I won't knock him for that. But what's y'all's take on that, being undefeated and retiring as champion? Thumbs up, thumbs down, indifferent?
Yeah, thumbs up. I mean, I think it's a good way. Go out on top. He's a legend, so you gotta send those guys off, the right way. And that's one thing I have to say. I think AEW has done well with their legends. I mean, they seem to treat them very well and present them good. So I'm thumbs up on that. One thing before we move on to this topic, I wanted to get this in here. When Wes was talking about meeting Sting, just one little funny story. Unless I ever meet like Sting now, I'm gonna go to my grave not knowing if I ever actually met Sting or not. Went to like this local high school thing back when I was a little kid, and I would be able to point Sting out if I like the real Sting, but I don't know if this was a random dude with his face painted or if it was actually Sting. But I have a program that signed with NWO Sting, and I have no idea if it's the real Sting or not. But hey, it's one of my. I'm gonna go to my grave not knowing if I ever met him. So
we'll say it was.
Yeah, it was him.
Right.
Me and my wife got a chance to meet him at WrestleCade in Winston-Salem a few years back, and we got a chance to meet a lot of people there over the years at the different conventions. But that was one I was really, really psyched about, and it was almost a similar experience to what Wes had. It was kind of where a lot of them things, man, they heard you through like cattle, and you're just like, hey, they sign your name, and boom, boom, boom. But we were towards the back of the line, and it was almost towards the end of his signing, and so we got to talk to him for a minute. I was like, dude, like I've been a fan of yours since like day one, and he listened to it, and he's like, oh, thank you, man. He said, it's I only come and do these is to meet the fans and feel like I'm giving something back. He said, because y'all giving me so much and to my family and all that. Just the most humble guy in the world, and it was really cool because I'm always kind of nervous in those situations. Like, man, I've looked up to this person for so long. Am I going to walk out of here being completely disappointed? And I usually haven't. The only person that we were super psyched to meet and we left like that dude's a dick is AJ Styles.
Really? I met AJ. I thought he was nice.
He might have been nice to you, but when we met him, it was at a Ring of Honor show in Nashville, and that mug wanted to be anywhere else but there. And what was crazy is like his line was right here, and over here was Roddy Piper. And we go through, and AJ's just aloof and indifferent. He signs the papers like, here you go. Like, walked over and took a picture with us and looked like, he wanted to, shit in our mouth. And then we go over there and we stand in line for Roddy Piper, who's like a freaking, megastar, movie star, just an icon. And dude, Piper acted like he was more excited to meet us than we were him. He's like, hugging us like, oh, it's so good to meet y'all. Where are y'all from? How long y'all been married? Just on and on and on. And AJ's just standing over looking like, like somebody shoot me. Like, I don't want to be here. And that's one of the few people, because Rosie was so psyched to meet AJ, even more than me, because she had been a big TNA fan in the six-sided ring days. And, we left that night. She's like, fuck AJ Styles. And to this day, like, I was over it. It's like, whatever. People have a bad night, whatever. Because there's been a million people like you that's been like, oh, he was great.
Yeah.
But to this day, if we watch a match and AJ Styles in it, she's like, AJ Styles, a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm good buddies. I'm good buddies with AJ's old tag team partner in WCW, Air Paris.
Paris.
Yeah, I'm buddies with him. I actually met him in line there. But yeah, story for another podcast. But yeah, he was cool to me.
But I've been lucky that way. I mean, I even had a good experience meeting Vader, and most people have horror stories about meeting Vader. So hopefully that luck continues on. Real quickly, Richard Mulligan says, I've only met one guy that disappointed me when Josh and I met Mick Foley at an OVW show, and it seemed like it was a chore for him to talk to us. Broke my heart.
That's another one that was very
See?
friendly to me. I mean, I was able to sit and talk to him for like 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, and he talked to me about whatever. But I also paid extra to like the meet and greet. So,
It's all timing and everything. As I said, the day I met Vader, he was super. We were first in line. He was super cool to me and my wife. Later that same day, an hour later, I seen buddies of mine who were further back in the line. They're like, "Oh my God, he was such a prick. He was so." I'm like, "He was great to us." So, quickly before we move on though, who is your favorite? And we're not going to take a long time on this, but just off the top of your head, who's your favorite Sting opponent or feud?
If we're going by storyline and everything, even though they ruined the match, Sting and Hogan. Just the build up.
Yeah.
Just because of the build up.
Yeah,
not the match.
fair.
I mean, that was
No,
beautiful.
that's absolutely fair.
I mean, yeah. Like I said, I'm not super well versed in everything that Sting did. I would have to say Hogan, but I will say it's a shame that we never got Undertaker and Sting. I mean, that just felt natural, but I wish we would have got that. But yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Wes, just being a young dude that doesn't know a lot of Sting history, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and thanks to Tony Khan, the one leg up that Sting has on Undertaker, he went through his entire AEW run undefeated. Undertaker lost to Brock Lesnar, so suck on that one, Undertaker.
Who? Brock Lesnar? Who? Who is that?
Oh, we'll get there. Take it easy. Richard Mulligan says his favorite Sting opponent, Rick Rude, and that is a good answer because he had some great matches with Rick Rude. Mine is going to be a guy that's mentioned, Vader. I love Sting's feud with Vader. Of course, the easy answer for a lot of people's Flair, but he had great feuds with Rude, Muda, Cactus Jack. But I did love the feud with Vader. So we'll move on past that, and very quickly before we get into this week in the Bloodline saga, I want to ask you guys about what are your opinions on the WWE 2K24 game that came out this week.
Look at that cover.
Other than the cover, I love it.
God, that's a beautiful cover.
But no, I think it's good. It's become like my birthday tradition. My birthday was 7 days ago, something like that. Anyway, my wife, that's like my wife's tradition now. It's like every year I just get 2K. So she got me the deluxe. So I had it since the day that the early access dropped, and I think it's solid. They've continued to improve it from the 2K20 debacle where it was like a total mess, and every year it just kind of keeps getting better and better. I like that they brought back GM mode a few games ago, which is what gets me to keep buying it because that's like my main thing, and they keep improving it. They have trades now. You can do all sorts of cool stuff. The storylines, I think I read that they have like 6 hours of dialogue in the story modes, and there's a men's and a women, storyline there. I like the showcase mode is cool with the WrestleMania moments. I just don't like having to play through it to unlock some certain stuff, but that's about it. But yeah, it's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm big on. Love the game. It's fantastic. I mean, it, like the little features they have, like you can like literally throw items at people. They added new matches, things like a casket match. They upgraded the street fights in the back and stuff. My biggest thing is universe mode, and not necessarily did they add anything new to it, but it just runs smoother. If that makes any sense.
What they need to do, in my opinion, is merge universe and GM mode together. It just feels like a natural thing, and I feel like universe gets neglected for GM now. I feel like a merging of those would be like great, and give player an option to like do the classic mode if you want to, if you don't want to do the GM aspects of it. That's the reason I like the GM mode. It gives me a goal. Like I'm not good at universe because I can't use my imagination to think of things. So like it gives me a goal. I know what I got to do. And I know if I'm working my way towards that. So that's why I prefer GM over universe, but they're very similar.
I'm ashamed to say I have in the past pre-ordered and gotten the game the day it come out back to like the PlayStation SmackDown games, like way back in the day. And this year's the first time that I was just broke ass, couldn't freaking afford to get the pre-order, and I still don't have it. I'm pretty bummed out about it because I've been watching some of these videos on YouTube this weekend, and it's like, oh man, this is like everything, every thumbs up from just about everybody. It's all these improvements, and
Right.
I was watching some of the videos of some of the WrestleMania playthroughs, and that's the only thing I hate about the showcase is like you got to go through and make all these moments happen exactly like they did in the match. It's like,
It could
okay,
get tedious if you're not really into it. I mean, I want to get through it to get the Bray Wyatt stuff. They have like 4 different Bray Wyatt characters in there. Like they have the Fiend, the Muscle Man guy, the Funhouse Bray. They have the old Bray. I mean, it's cool, but you have to play through WrestleMania moments to get like all the different characters of them.
Speaking of Bray, I don't think I showed Tyler what happened to me the night I got it. So I was playing Universe mode, and it was like the first SmackDown. So they already have like matches set up, in order. Like this person's gonna fight this person, until you mess with it. Dude, they had Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt the first week, and I was like, damn. Like,
Got you the feels.
yeah, I was like, damn. That's a hell of a good match, but damn.
I watched a video of somebody playing through the whole Bray Wyatt John Cena WrestleMania match, and to this day that match still just irks the shit out of me. Like everything about it.
The
Anyway.
the great cutscenes where Vince's face is a giant blur.
Dude, they blur so many things in that showcase mode to keep from paying them. Like Mean Gene's blurred out. Like there's all kinds of people
Vince is blurred out every time he shows up. They somehow took Lesnar out of the game, but left him in the showcase mode. So
yeah, more on Lesnar. We'll get to him.
Yeah, I keep bringing him up.
All right, so this is everybody's, I'm assuming, favorite part of the show. I don't know. This week's Rock Bloodline Cody Seth update. Now, I say this week, but since we weren't here last week, we're going to circle back a little bit. So, before last weekend, this is what we would have discussed going into last week's shows. The notes I had, you had another stellar promo that Monday from Seth and Cody, which brought about this Rock Twitter rant that he said something about the feels a minute ago with Orton and Bray. It got a lot of smart fans in their feels where they said he was shooting and he was breaking kayfabe and breaking down the storyline. And I honestly think these guys have finally gotten smart enough to realize, like, all right, well, anything that happens on the main show, most folks are smart enough to know that's part of the show, that's scripted, whatever. But most of these folks are gullible enough to think if it happens on X or Twitter or Instagram or something, that's his real account. He must really be meaning this shit. And if he's saying something he ain't supposed to be saying, oh shit, they're off the storyline now. So I think some people are now bought in because of this Rock promo that he did. So in that case, I'm all for it. Anything that makes people believe in 2024, sign me up. I like it. And this is apropos of nothing. This is just fun. I just found this screenshot and had to show it. That's just a fun picture for me.
Beautiful.
I just had to put that up.
Oh,
so so that led us to the previous week's SmackDown, which Reigns and the Bloodline come out, and they don't acknowledge Roman to his liking, so he's going to pack it in and leave. Paul reluctantly says, no, we can't leave. We got business, because he's coming out, and he brings The Rock out, and The Rock cuts a long-winded promo, as he does, cracks a couple of funny jokes involving Solo and different things, and more so than since this whole Rock Bloodline alliance thing has kind of formed, you can just tell through this whole promo something's up Roman's ass sideways. Like he's ill through the whole promo. So, Rock drops down. He's getting ready to do as if you smell, and Roman grabs his arm. and stops him. Tells him he needs something from him. He needs him to acknowledge him. So as you guys are watching this, what do you think's about to happen? Did you guys really expect Rock to flat out, acknowledge Roman as his tribal chief as it played out?
I think for right now, yeah, but it was well done as in the fact that it was the first bit of tension that they've thrown in there between Rock and Roman outside of the Birmingham stare down before all the plans changed.
Yep.
So like you're planting that seed of what everyone thinks is going to happen at WrestleMania, in which The Rock is somehow, some way going to cost Roman the title. So, I think that it made sense for him to do it right now, and he also hesitated in it. Yeah, like right there, they did the whole thing, and they were chanting, calling him a sellout, and he said something about them, being meth heads or something like that.
Yeah, go smoke some more crack,
Yeah.
which apparently was problematic for Fox.
Right. Yeah, that was quite funny, but yeah, I mean they're planting the first seeds of tension. He didn't answer it immediately, so he had that like stare down, like, did this dude really just do this to me?
Oh yeah, it took the sunglasses off.
Yeah,
it could have went down right there. You're like,
Right.
oh shit, how's this going? And then
So
he says it, and you're like, okay.
I think the way to do it was in a good way. It got you thinking like, crap, what's about to happen, and then it just ended. Like, damn, he just said he acknowledged him, but it plants that seed at least.
Now, a lot is being made by people online about this.
I was about to
A couple
ask you
different
the same
times
thing.
now, The Rock has got his thumb out, and people are saying that's a subtle nod that he's not really in. I just think The Rock hasn't been bothered to actually learn the freaking hand sign right, and they're maybe reading too much into it. But then again, with the subtlety of some of the other stuff they're doing, that may be exactly what it is. But that's what I love about it. You don't know, and that's what's making this really good. They're throwing a lot of wrinkles in along the way. They're keeping you guessing. So I do think that's fun though, because like there's so many people that are picking this apart. Like I seen a guy like with a teleprompter like John Madden last week. It's like he had a thumb out, and then at this point, when he said, "I'm going to cost you the match," he's saying it like he's saying it to Cody Rhodes, but he's actually literally pointing at Roman Reigns. And and in the end, when we go back and look at it, it's going to be like that movie, The Usual Suspects. All the signs were there. He was telling us all along, and we just didn't see it. And I'm like,
all these things just feel so specific that like I feel like you would have to almost be a mark to catch some of this stuff. Like the casual fan's not catching some of this.
It's the super smart marks that are just looking, because it's these guys that refuse to get worked. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they pick apart everything so that in the end they can be like, "Oh, I knew all along, man. I told y'all he was pointing at Roman, and he had his thumb out, and blah blah blah." But there's one thing about The Rock is like he's not great at not do like I was kind of disappointed years ago to find this out, like watching Beyond the Mat and some of the things. Like everything The Rock does is super scripted, super laid out. Like very little with The Rock just happens. So if these things do turn out to be relevant, then it was probably molded by like what's his head? What's the Rock's writer that used to work for WWE, and now he's just his personal.
Is it the guy that wrote the book, Brian?
Yeah, Brian
Gerwitz
or however you say his freaking
I read
name.
the book. Yeah.
If that's the case, then he's probably orchestrating all this, and kudos to him. So we move past that. We come to Monday night. Now, it has pained me in the previous weeks on this podcast to sit here and put over Seth Rollins for doing good promos and what a great role he has played in this story thus far. But oh boy, did he, no pun intended, shit the bed Monday night when he comes out there with this diarrhea Dwayne. That's what we came up with. I don't even know if he came up with it. It may have been written for him. But oh my God, I was sitting there watching that whole promo. I was just cringe. I was like, the streak's over, Seth. You lost me on this one.
He had a good run, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he went
had
longer
a
than I
really
thought
good
it would.
run.
Well, I mean, the crowd did chant diarrhea at Rock, so it caught on with some people. But
Yeah.
I feel like Seth's been getting buried by both Rock and Roman recently. He needed something a little stronger.
Yeah. Fast forwarding to this past Friday night, I understand that there's a small segment of the audience wanting to cancel Roman because of his cross-dresser remark. I was like, get a life. Like, you people could, for all the people that say they want to see the Attitude Era come back, the minute somebody says anything even remotely controversial, they all lose their mind. Like, you people couldn't have survived in the Attitude Era. Like, the stuff they say now is nothing compared to that. But yeah, it's not the worst thing ever. It's not as let's jump to the comments here. As Richard points out, that was some Fruity Pebbles suffering succotash stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's still not as bad as Roman's suffering succotash promo from back in the day. That's top 5 worst promos of all time. But anyway, he's coming in hot this past Friday night. Rock's out there doing his promo, and Seth cuts him off, lets him know that they will be accepting the challenge. They don't need to hear the stipulations again. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's some fan cam footage or phone footage of people from in the crowd who were shooting that segment. And as The Rock is carrying on, the camera guys are like, come on, let's go. They're trying to speed him up, which I'm sure he just loved. And of course, we were speeding him up to get him to this. Now, you talk about subtlety, you talk about look in the background of this picture.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, you didn't see it on TV because it happened so quickly. They switched angles very quickly. But this screenshot has been going around since Friday night. And you see Roman in the background clearly enjoying that. But yeah, that was fun. And that's a big step, for them to have Cody slap The Rock. Rock come out there and slapped him. And to me, it was kind of keeping Cody down here a couple of levels below The Rock. Like, all right, come out here and get a little too loud with the big megastar, you're going to get smacked in the face and brought back down to earth. But, Cody comes out and smacks him. Seth gets in his face and doesn't die. It was a great way for them to, subtly put those two guys on their level. Like, all right, these are two legitimate opponents for them at WrestleMania. And the stakes are pretty high, because the way this is laid out, Cody and Seth wins. Now Cody gets the shot with all the bloodline band. It's 1-on-1. Should be a slam dunk for Cody to finish his story. And God knows I'm ready for him to finish it just so we don't have to hear that phrase said anymore. But, I mean, let's face it. They're not going to win the tag match.
I was about to ask. I mean, like, what do y'all think? Who do y'all think is going to win that match?
The Rock and Roman are going to win the tag. Okay, well, here's the thing. If they do win the tag match, Cody's probably not winning the title because they're not going to sweep Reigns both nights of WrestleMania.
Correct.
Plus, what does Cody's win mean if you take away all the adversity? Right. But if they lose the tag match and he comes into the next night, it's like, all right, he lost last night, he lost last year, and now you got all the bloodline out here to interfere. There's no way in hell he can win. And then he wins. Now we've done something. Plus, that also opens the door for if we really are going the way of, in the end, The Rock's going to stick it to Roman. I hope we don't go that way just because it cheapens Cody's win. But then again, with the deck stacked so far against him, even if The Rock kind of helps him along, it's still a big deal for him to win. And then that gives us Rock and Roman at SummerSlam, I assume, is where we're headed now with those two. Is the rumor anyway?
I'm just wondering how they pull the loss. I'm just wondering how they pull the loss off. Like, that's the one thing. Like,
well, we're beating Seth, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But then again, maybe not. Maybe not.
Is there a chance? And this is just me. This might not make any sense. Is there a chance Seth Rollins somehow turns on Cody Rhodes. I mean, the guy's like 0-20 against Cody Rhodes, and now he's his best friend. And Cody kind of like buried his title and like, yeah, I don't want your title.
It very well. I mean, it would make a lot of sense, but to me, it almost makes too much sense. It's like, I mean, this is to me, this is the opportunity for Seth to finally establish himself as a long-term babyface and somebody that the fans can trust. Because if he turns on Cody here, it's like this dude is forever going to be labeled just the Weasley, like, backstabbing piece of shit. And, you know, because that's what he's always been. You know, he's the one that stabbed the Shield in the back, and he's always been wishy-washy ever since. So, but that's very likely. And it could be, you could go the way of they win on Friday night, and now Cody's got a clear path to winning on Sunday. And like you say, Seth's the one that screws him. And now we've got
ultimate adversity. I mean, he's went through, you know, he had the adversity with the bloodline. Then the guy that's like said, "Oh yeah, man, I'm your buddy. I'm gonna, you know, be by your side through this whole thing." Turns on him, you know. But then he's still gonna win it all at the end. I don't know. It's a thought. It's just weird, you know. If you look back at Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes' history, they haven't been buddies like ever. So.
Yeah, Doug, I'm not sure who's come around to whose way of thinking, but I find myself agreeing with you more lately, and I don't know if that scares me more or you more. But Richard says, I don't think they will pull the trigger on Cody winning.
That's also crossed my mind.
That's my call. Seth turns on Cody.
That's crossed my mind too. I mean, and I'm not saying it as a Roman homer, but I know, and it would piss a lot of people off for a while, and it's going to take them time to make this make sense. But there is an MSG show that people tend to think like, you know, that would make the most sense. That's where Dusty got his, I think that's where Dusty got his championship. Was it? No.
Well, he didn't get a championship, but he won it. Yeah, and they took the belt from him.
Yeah, they took it away. But yeah, that's where he.
Yeah, MSG is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I'll be honest with you guys, and I know it's going to be, well, it's Cody's fault. Dude, eventually fans get bored. You could be whoever. You could be The Rock. You could be Hulk Hogan. You could be Ric Flair. Eventually, if it's the same shit, you're like, okay. Like, you know, he didn't do it. Let's see if he does it next year. You know, like.
I don't think Roman's going to win. But it has crossed my mind that there might be a sliver of a chance. Just a sliver.
I mean, to me, if you don't pull the trigger, I mean, I said that last year that I thought he should win, and everybody's like, no, you got to tell long-term stories. He's only been there for a year and a half, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, fair enough. But you've built up to your second WrestleMania in a row with this whole finish my story nonsense. You know, if they don't pull the trigger with it this year, all right, even if they do pull the trigger with it 6 months from now, a year from now, it's not going to be the same because the fans are going to be, they're going to be like, they're not going to put it on him anyway. And then when he does win, they'll be like, oh, well, okay, he finally won it. All right, but they have struck gold with him where a guy who left as a mid-carder that nobody gave a shit about and then went and toured the world and made a name for himself and started a whole other company and all this jazz, comes back, and by all rights, you wouldn't think the WWE audience would have been behind him when he showed back up at that WrestleMania. He's been gone all this time. He started AEW, and allegedly nobody watches or likes AEW. But when that music hit at WrestleMania, everybody knew exactly who it was. Well, guess what? That wasn't his WWE music. That wasn't his WWE look. He wasn't the American Nightmare in WWE. So at some point, them folks had seen some AEW to know or care who he was. Right. So you really wouldn't have expected him to get over the way he's gotten over. And name me one other babyface in WWE that has gotten over to the extent that Cody has in the last 2 years. That's a 100% pure babyface. It's not flip-floppy Seth. It's not flip-floppy McIntyre. It's not flip-floppy Kevin Owens. Sami Zayn. You go down the list of all the guys who's been babyfaces. None of them have been full-on babyfaces. They flip back and forth. There's always that element of like, well, he could turn. They've done it before. But most people are 100% behind him, and if they don't strike while the iron's hot, he's going to, like I've said before, he's going to be Lex Luger in WCW in '88 or Lex Luger in WWF in '93 when they send him on a bus around the country touring, and then they have him win by a countout at SummerSlam, and he doesn't win the belt, but yet they still drop balloons and celebrate. Good Lord, if Cody wins at WrestleMania but doesn't win the belt, they do some dumb crap like that, he's dead in the water.
It's definitely. I mean, I think it's definitely the time to put it on him. I mean, if you're going to put it on him, now,
if not him, who? If Cody doesn't beat Roman, what are you going to let The Rock beat Roman? Rock doesn't need that. And then if Roman beats The Rock, what other babyface do you have to justify beating Roman after he's held the belt for 10,000 days and beat everybody on the roster at this point? There's no one else the fans really want to see beat him. Drew McIntyre is going to turn back babyface and beat him eventually or some bullshit?
CM Punk when his stuff's healed up.
If that happens, I mean, I love CM Punk, but he may get hurt in the first match he has back after he comes back 6 months from now.
I was about to say, he gets hurt during the title match and wins, and then you're like,
yeah, he wins and has to give the belt up like when he won it in AEW that last time.
Yeah, I think they know what they're doing. I'll be shocked if we leave WrestleMania without Cody the champ.
Richard says, how ironic would it be if it's a dusty finish at Mania?
I almost said that. I was
God
like,
help us. God.
You know who was the closest person, in my opinion, who had, I think, the crowd to win it was Sami Zayn.
Yes.
When the bloodline was, and he ended up supporting Kevin Owens, betraying Roman. And, I mean, that was the moment, like, if you wanted to pull the trigger.
That would have happened. I'm a Roman fan, and I wanted that to happen. In
that moment, in Montreal, with the build they had, that was their next best chance. But, I mean, we're long past that now. I mean, they've squandered all the equity they built up in Sami Zayn is long gone now.
Yeah, he's
but
back
the problem then was you already were banking on that Cody match at that WrestleMania, and I'm going to say this, it's going to make some people mad, and I'm a Sami Zayn fan and have been since the El Generico days in Ring of Honor, but Sami wins the title in Montreal. He beats Roman. He wins the title. That is a huge moment in Montreal. That is a great feel-good moment. But then Sami Zayn is your champion. Now what? He's just going to be transitional. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because he's not.
It's going to be him and Kevin Owens, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's only going to hold it for a short amount of time because he's just not that marketable. He's not like.
It's like a Kofi. It's like a Kofi championship.
Yes, it's exactly what it would have been. It would have been a great feel-good moment. It'd be like, hell yeah, if Sami can do it, we all can do it. Yay! But then, Brock would have probably would have been the same exact thing again. Brock would have come out and just broke him in two and took the belt back, and here we'd be again. Yeah, Richard kind of agrees. Punk would be the only believable one at this point, and I agree. But let's see what else have we got here. Speaking of, you've dropped his name a couple times. I just mentioned it again. So the rumor is, and that's not even a rumor. You can go look and see for yourself. Brock Lesnar has all of a sudden been returned to the active roster over on WWE.com, wherever it is people track these things and report it as news. He is suddenly not persona non grata with WWE. Now, there's been a rumor floating around for 2 or 3 weeks now that UFC may be fixing to bring him back for a heavyweight UFC title fight of some such. So I could see them wanting to kind of repair his WWE persona before bringing him in UFC, so people aren't going like, oh, he's too much of a criminal to be seen on WWE, but UFC's fine with it. So it may not mean we're going to see him at WrestleMania. I don't know that I want to see him at WrestleMania. The only way I want to see him at WrestleMania, I would like to see the Gunther match. Brock Lesnar and Gunther, I think, would be a fun match. I don't know why we didn't see it last year instead of that stupid match with Omos or whatever the fuck you say his name, the 8-foot-tall Nigerian. And then the three-way Sheamus and McIntyre and Gunther it was a good match. They chopped the piss out of each other for forever. But I just cannot. I've said it on here before. I really can't bring myself to care too much about Drew. Yes, I like some of his heel antics lately. He says some funny things on Twitter and on the mic, and he wears funny T-shirts now and again. I have never, ever, in the history of that man working for that company, ever been able to give 1 ounce of a shit for Sheamus, and never will. Like when they announced that match last year, I was like, God help us.
I am the same way as you with him.
I mean, is it his the way he works? Is it his character?
I
Like just a
think he's
mixture?
bored.
It's just all of it. It's just all of it. It's
Yeah.
just I don't care about the character. I don't care about his matches. It's all the same. I was like, okay, he's gonna hold him over the rope and hit him across the chest with his forearm, and do the stupid boot. Like I liked Cesaro until he started tagging with Sheamus, and I was like, kiss of death. I mean, and I don't care how many times they held the tag titles or anything else. It's just like I'm out on that. So yeah, I would like to see Brock come back and face Gunther, especially if Gunther was going to win. I don't need Brock jumping back in the title picture of any title, be it Seth's title or the Universal. God help us if he was to come back and be the one to beat Roman, I would just probably be out on all this crap forever. Because I mean, how many WrestleManias and how many main events can those guys? Richard says it's his name. That don't help. That's for sure. Hey, J-Dub says, I'm late, but I made it. Good to see you, buddy. Glad you could join us. We're just dumping on Sheamus right now. If you want to throw your comments
right now,
in there.
and two, like Gunther, going to the Gunther subject, I don't know what their plan is with Gunther for WrestleMania. I saw where Cody Rhodes tweeted Chad Gable and told him to finish his story and win that thing to fight Gunther. I'm like, man, we going from Brock and Gunther to Gunther and Chad Gable?
Chad Gable.
Man, I don't want that. I mean,
Well, I mean, wasn't there did they already do that? Well, I know they did it on Raw.
Like, on, isn't there?
Well, I know they did something with him and Jey Uso, but was that just building up to like a Raw match or something? Like, I figured it would somehow carry over to WrestleMania.
Well, they're also doing the stuff with isn't it Dominic too?
Yeah. So
and they hate Dominic, so
yeah, so that's not helping.
I don't know. I'm lost on what they're doing with Gunther. I think the original plan was Brock, and then they have not come up with a backup plan for this.
They just knew they wanted to break the Honky Tonk Man's record, and they did that. Now they're just like, I don't know what we're doing now. We're wanting to break all the long-standing title records, and then after that, we'll figure it out from there. And that's why I'm kind of worried they're going to be like, let's just keep it on Roman until he breaks Hogan's record, just in case Hogan drops another
and also
or something, and we got to pull him out of the Hall of Fame again.
Right. Well, we also just to touch on the Brock being back on the roster page, there are people on Twitter and X, whatever you call it. They claim that he's been on that the whole time. I don't know. I don't keep up with it, but they claim that he's been in the free agent section the whole time of the website. So maybe that's nothing. Maybe it is something. I mean, UFC.
That may be true because Lord knows I don't check the website.
Yeah, UFC signed Greg Hardy to fight. They don't care about your character, so they'll definitely bring Brock back.
I mean, I'm honestly surprised WWE had a website. I didn't even know they had one. So
I mean, I don't like he hasn't been specifically named in any of this. I mean, obviously a former UFC champion. Okay, obviously they were referring to Lesnar, but like he hasn't been directly implicated in anything that should have warranted him being just wiped out of everything before any of this goes to trial or any of that. I understand taking McMahon out of there. That's fine.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit? But, I think they kind of jumped the gun on Brock. But I think that tells me there is something that could come out that they know about that they were trying to get in front of at some point. You know what I mean? Because, just based on what we know, it didn't warrant all that. So it makes me think that there's another shoe that's liable to drop that's going to make Brock look a whole lot worse than what we know so far.
Right.
But that's just my speculation. Who knows? But if he was to be added to WrestleMania, that's really the only match that jumps out at me. But I'm going to be totally honest. I don't keep up with much of AEW or WWE. I go on YouTube and I'm following the whole Rock and Cody saga and all this stuff because I find it interesting and because we're talking about it on here each week. I'll usually look into. I'll watch a couple of Kevin Owens segments because I've always found him entertaining back to the Kevin Steen days of Ring of Honor and the Indies. And right now, there's really nobody in AEW that I make it a point to watch any of their stuff. I don't know.
Never thought of. I mean, if you care about him, yeah, I don't really. I'm kind of like you, except I do watch Raw and SmackDown for the most part. But
I don't have access to it because I don't have cable. All my shit's streaming, but I don't care to. If I had it, I probably wouldn't watch it. Richard says, I just went to WWF.com and all they have are pandas on there. When did this happen? All right, so we're about to go to the topic. Let's put the banner up since producer Smokey took the time to make it. What's your all-time dream match? So we're going to lead with, from the comments, he may be stealing one of you guys' thunder. I don't know. Chef J-Dub says, dream match, no one sees coming. Undertaker and Sting, and the match for winners gets a new hip. It's fair. It's fair. So, all right, here it is, the big moment. I said what one of my main dream matches was in the show before, so I'm going to drop a different one this time. But who wants to go first?
I can go.
Right.
I've literally not been shy about saying this. You're going to think it's like I'm lying because, this is just the current storyline. But I swear to you, the only match that I've wanted in WWE for years is Rock and Roman. And that's why I was so salty when the whole thing got derailed. I do think we're going to get it eventually, but that's my dream match. That's what I want.
Okay, so not to be a dick, but to be devil's advocate here. All right, so you've seen Roman's last couple of years worth of matches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you saw The Rock just get completely blown up, beaten up Jinder Mahal. And The Rock's previous last match was what? Who did he wrestle last before when he had a match? Was it
Cena?
Was it the Cena match? So what, 10, 12
Are you
years
talking
ago?
about when you just rock bottom that guy and pinned him immediately? Or?
Yeah, let's not count. I'm talking about having an actual match.
I think actual Cena.
So,
Yeah,
okay, so that's what, 10 years ago or something?
Yeah.
And that was like many birthdays and a lot of steroids ago. So are you wanting to see this strictly based off the magnitude of the star from yesteryear to the star now? Or do you think that's going to be a good match? Like the match itself is actually going to be good?
I don't think it's
I feel like
be...
that's going to be like the drizzling shits in practice as far as what the actual match will
Right.
be. It's going to be a whole lot of, interference and smoke and mirrors to hide like Rock's limitations, and Roman just don't do shit anymore. So
right. I think it's more about the moment. Plus, not just about the match itself, but like the bloodline story is what's gotten me like invested back into WWE. Like I absolutely love. I've been enthralled ever since that whole story started. I think that's the proper ending to it. Regardless of how good or bad the match is. No, I'm not expecting like some 5-star Dave Meltzer, breaking the record or anything like that. But I think it'll be just fun. I just think it'll be fun to watch. I'm not saying like the wrestling's going to be great, but for the moments, it's kind of like Rock Hogan, those kind of things. It wasn't necessarily the best match, but it's just the moment of it. The crowd, well, if you didn't make the crowd hate The Rock already, if you would have done this without Cody winning the Rumble, I think the crowd would have been behind the match. Now you can't do that. You have to finish Cody's story first and then do it. But
what is the proper, like in your mind, what's the proper ending? Does The Rock beat Roman to end the bloodline, or does Roman beat him?
I think Roman beats him and goes on to just continue to be his, I was talking to Wes about this on Twitter. I think even after Roman drops his belt, I think Roman's to the point where he's like Brock Lesnar almost. Like he's going to continue to be like this box office guy, even without the belt. When he shows up, people are going to want to know what Roman Reigns is doing. I just think he's gotten to that point in his career. I mean, no, I don't think you can like have, the 50-year-old or however old he is, Rock, come back and just beat Roman, who has literally beaten everybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I haven't really thought about how I want it to end, but that is my dream match. That's literally what I wanted. That's why I marked out in Birmingham when the Rock's music hit. All
I
of
mean,
it.
that's fair. There's no wrong answer. I'm just asking, you know,
Yeah. I
just
I think Roman has. I think Roman had to win for
okay.
sure. I don't want the Rock to come back up in here and beat Roman Reigns. I mean, Roman Reigns is like the biggest star of the in the
I mean,
company.
I think coming out of this, I don't know what their intentions are. I assume their intentions are when you come out of the Cody thing that you're going to have Rock and Roman. And I think in their perfect world, they probably want the Rock to be the babyface. But I think Roman's going to be a huge babyface coming out of this bloodline run. And I really think since he needs to go over, they need to play that up. And when this all plays out, maybe that does mean The Rock costs him the title at WrestleMania. Roman and Rock at SummerSlam, Roman's the babyface, and Roman beats The Rock rather than the heel Roman screwing The Rock, and then it don't really mean shit anyway. And then let Rock go away, and then he can just kind of ease back in later as a babyface by default. But I think that match now in today's current situation, based on everything that's happened, I think fans have been waiting to cheer Roman. I mean, hell, despite the storylines, when he comes out, I mean, the crowd goes nuts in most places.
Right.
They acknowledge him and they put the finger and all that shit, and he sells all that merch. I think the fans are just dying for an excuse to get on board with that. So I think he ends up being a babyface, but we'll see what they do. Not everyone agrees. Shay Dub says, I'm just over Roman Reigns. Tommy Todd says, I'm a Joe Blow fan. I'm over Roman too. And Richard, for his dream match, says, I still want Punk and Austin.
Hey,
Um,
Austin Theory could put on a good match. I thought the KO Austin match was surprisingly pretty good.
it was
So
better than it had any right to be. Now, let me take a step back here before Wes answers. I'm not trying to alter his answer or anything. But for me personally, like when I say dream match, I'm saying literal dream match of like any people from any era, like not feasible matches that we could make happen at WrestleMania next year, as in like I would like to see a dream match between CM Punk and Austin, but I would like to see 98 Austin against 2012 CM Punk, not 2024 Punk and Austin. I mean,
right.
I'll watch it if they have it, but let's face it, it's going to be a shit show. It's probably not going to be as good as the one with KO, quite honestly. So, that being said, Wes, let's hear yours.
Well, I'm a Sting guy, so I want to go flat top Sting days with like mid 90s, maybe early 90s Shawn Michaels.
Okay.
I think that would be. I think them two together in the ring. I mean, both very gifted, very Sting being athletic, Shawn Michaels being one of the best to ever hit the ring, in my opinion. I mean, super entertaining, good performer.
So you get maybe 89, 1990 Sting versus like 95, 96 Shawn Michaels.
Yes, yeah.
I can dig that.
Especially like Great American Bash 90s Sting.
Yeah.
You know, with Flair.
Say you take Great American Bash 90, you take Red, White, and Blue Sting, and you pull the Shawn Michaels out of the mind games in your house with Mankind match and put him in the Great American Bash against Sting. And maybe, pretend like he's Russian or something. I don't know. Sting's all American flagged out, and he's wrestling Ric Flair. I'm like, dude, Ric Flair's freaking Minnesota, man. Like, calm down. But so I had said a couple of weeks ago that one of my all-time dream matches I would love to see, and I'll preface this by saying I would like to see the 1985 British Bulldogs against the 1992 Steiner Brothers. I think that would be a great tag team match. But since I had already said that previously, another dream tag team match I would have loved to have seen, and you could have done this in their own era, like in 87, in 86, the Rock and Roll Express against the Hart Foundation. Exactly as they were. If you'd have just plucked the Rock and Roll Express out of Jim Crockett Promotions in late 86, pulled the Hart Foundation out of the WWF in late 86, baby faces, heels, put them together, I think that could have been an amazing tag team match. So that's going to be my answer. Another runner-up, if we're talking about guys in their prime, I would like to see Punk versus Bret Hart.
Well, if we can retroactively age guys, I'd like The Rock to be a little younger. He's gonna face Roman, so yeah,
Yeah.
current day Roman versus Attitude Era Rock. There we
There
go.
you go. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. That I can get behind. Still, yeah.
I mean, another good one. I mean, going back to Bret Hart would be like a Brian Danielson.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
even Benoit Danielson would have been really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're talking straight up dream match, theoretical dream match, yeah, Brian Danielson and Chris Benoit would have been amazing. Tommy Todd says the Gobbledygooker versus the Shockmaster. Well, Hector Guerrero and Fred Ottman are both still alive, so we could probably make that happen somewhere. Indie show in Alabama if Barry Koloff wants to book that on the next Rocket City Wrestling Con in Huntsville. Our good friend Delbert Jenkins could probably help.
He could push it.
And Richard says the match that was teased but never happened: Bret Hart versus El Dandy. And I think El Dandy could win that one because who are we to doubt him? That's a deep cut for the few people that'll get that. I'll get a DM from a couple people who will get what that means. Everybody else is like, what the fuck are you talking about? But speaking of El Dandy, I did see recently that he now works as a chiropractor down in Mexico. Makes a good living. So kudos to El Dandy. All right, guys. So we made it in an hour 7, so that's awesome. I wanted to try to keep it to about an hour and no more than an hour and a half. So we did it. We covered all the topics that we had planned to cover. So is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Not to sound like you know who, but anything we need to discuss.
What do you guys want to talk about?
Well, I think we've talked about that guy enough this week. We'll wait for him to slap somebody else before we go there.
Are they all? Well, no. Roman and Rock show up on SmackDown. I was about to ask if they were advertised for tomorrow, but no, it'll probably be just Seth and Cody.
Yeah, this be said. God knows what Seth will have come up with for this week. We got diarrhea Dwayne last week. We'll probably get rheumatoid arthritis Roman or something stupid this week. Who knows?
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna say it. Never mind.
Not that the walking clown emoji was a home run, mind you.
Yeah, that was weak for the Rock standards.
Pretty dog shit too, but he's he hadn't been a heel in a while. He's trying to get his footing again, I assume. But but no, I'm looking forward to WrestleMania because you can speculate, you can analyze all these things that who's holding their finger a certain way, who's pointing here, who's pointing there. The Roman's laughing in the background and The Rock gets the shit slapped out of him. All these different things. But they're doing a great job of planting all these different seeds that could take these things in a bunch of different directions. So I'm excited because it's one of the first times in a while where it doesn't feel really predictable, So Tommy Todd mentions, glad Paul Heyman is going to Hall of Fame. He's good at what he does. You damn right. I don't know when I've been as psyched about a Hall of Fame announcement as I was when I saw that Paul Heyman's going in Philadelphia, no less. Yes, I will definitely be watching that.
One question before we go. Who do you think's going to induct him? Brock seemed like the obvious answer, but it's not anymore. I'm going to go with Roman or CM Punk.
Punk's a very good chance and a good choice. Well-spoken guy. With WWE's seemingly great working relationship currently with TNA, Tommy Dreamer is a possibility.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah,
that wouldn't shock me.
I think it should be Tommy.
Tommy, CM Punk. I don't even if you took all this other BS off the table, I don't see Lesnar going out and doing an induction speech. I just don't. He's so not that guy. He could do it. Don't get me wrong.
He feels like the most fitting.
He's a good talker, and he's definitely the most fitting. But I just don't. I think he'd just be like, nah. I'll go stand behind somebody and look menacing while they do it. But I don't think he'll do it, and I don't think I mean, Roman's a possibility, but I doubt it. Just with, I
They
mean,
haven't
in
done
the
it.
past, they've seemed like they've tried to kind of stay away from guys who were in a big position at WrestleMania the next day, and especially something that's going to kind of take him out that far out of character. So I think Punk's probably a good possibility, but I think if I was a betting man, gun to my head, I would say Tommy Dreamer is probably. And who's to say they may come out of left field and pull somebody from the old Dangerous Alliance days or something. I don't know. Most of them guys are dead. Now that I think about it, Rude, Bob Eaton. So I don't think Larry Zabisco is going to come back and do it.
It's
But
gonna be
Austin,
Sabu.
oh God, help us. Oh, God, Sabu, that piece of shit.
Sandman.
Anyway, yo, Paul. Yeah, Ray Russell says Austin. I would love for it to be Austin, and that would be fitting, because Heyman gave Austin that opportunity coming out of WCW before he went into WWF. I mean, the Stone Cold character got developed in ECW. I mean, granted, he didn't have that name, he didn't have his head shaved, but if you go back and watch those Stunning Steve promos from ECW, that was a preview of who we were getting ready to see a few months
I mean,
down the
clothes
line.
and all.
Oh, yeah.
He had the shirt tucked in with the jeans, like coming out, blonde hair, raising
It's
hell.
so funny. Like, I remember like being at a WCW house show in 1994 or 5, I guess it would be. Me and my little brother sitting in the second row, and Stunning Steve Austin is wrestling Hacksaw Jim Duggan in a U.S. title match on this house show. And there's this guy in the front row who just keeps yelling at Austin, just on and on. He's like, call him like the F word and all this kind of stuff, just over and over and over. And keep in mind now, this is WCW 94. All I've ever seen is Stunning Steve out there, with his nose in the air with Flying Brian and later Colonel Parker. Right in the middle of this match, he's about to lock up with Duggan, and he stopped, and that guy yelled at him again. And Austin drops, rolls out of the ring, goes over to the rail, leans over the rail, and he's got his head bobbing. He's like, I tell you what, son, you sit your ass in this seat or I'll drag you over the rail and I'll whoop your ass all the way around this ring and I'll throw your sorry ass right back over the rail and have them take you out of this building, son. And then rolls back in the ring, and me and my brother's just like, oh, man, I've never seen that side of him. And then fast forward to ECW, those promos, and then fast forward to, the Attitude Era. And me and my brother was always like, we saw Stone Cold at a WCW house show in 94 with long blonde hair still being Stunning Steve. Like, he's had that in him. Like, that's who he is, So that's what always kind of made that character fun to me, because it's like, I felt like we had that little bit of insight of like, no, that's him. That's him. That's not a character he came up with. Like, that's who this guy is. He's from freaking Texas. But I think we've had another fun show. We will be back here next Sunday night. We're going to try to possibly work in a comedy topic next week. I wanted to do it this week, but we kind of ran over with the wrestling talk, as we do here, and that's what most people tune in for, I feel like. But since it's the Main Event Comedy Podcast, I feel like every now and again we probably should talk a little bit of comedy. So, check out some comedy specials this week if you get the chance. I know there's been some new ones drop lately. Mike Epps has got a new one on Netflix. Donnell Rawlings has got one on Netflix. David Lucas put his new one out, Uncancelable, on YouTube. I watched it the other night. It was pretty fun. So we'll talk a little comedy next week. And, of course, we'll check in with our friends, The Rock, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, and Seth Rollins, and see where we're at and all the twists and turns leading to WrestleMania. And we'll come up with another fun topic. We've covered dream matches, and so next week we'll have another fun topic to talk about here. And good time, fellas. Thank you for joining us, Ray. That's for you guys that don't know, that's my buddy Ray Russell from the WrestleCopia Wrestling Podcast Network. He has got a ton of great shows over, especially if you're into old school wrestling like I am. Me and him do the Memphis 1985 podcast over at WrestleCopia. It's the regional wrestling podcast. He also does one with Jamie Ward where they talk about Georgia in 1981. Him and Roman Gomez talk about UWF in 1986, and also he also has the Wrestling Memory Grenade, where right now they are right in the middle of, he's in the middle of talking about the WWF in 1988, and we are currently on WrestleMania 4. I was a guest on this week's podcast. We talked about the big Battle Royal in part 1. Next week's going to be part 2, and I will get to talk about the 6-man tag team match where the British Bulldogs and Koko Beware took on the Islanders and Bobby Heenan, with the grand return of Matilda to the WWF, along with the Honky Tonk Man defending the Intercontinental title against Brutus the Barber Beefcake. So I'm looking forward to that. So check Ray's WrestleCopia out. Join his Patreon for just $5. He's got a ton of great wrestling content. And speaking of friends of the show, I almost forgot, Wes. Right now, we're going to take a quick break and hear from a couple of our friends in the podcast world, and then we will see you back here next Sunday night at 9:30 for another episode of the Main Event Comedy Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Check this out.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
50% 1980 Saturday Morning Wrestling, 50% Mystery Science Theater 3000, 100% not as good as either one. The Outlaw Wrestling Federation presents OWF Worldwide Wrestling. Please join me, Broadcast Bob Anderson, and my co-host, Whitey Jenkins, as we call some of the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest wrestling action from the nicest backyards, bingo halls, county fairs, and volunteer fire departments across these United States and around the world. Each and every Thursday, only on YouTube. For more, go to officialowf.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Sheik, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all. And all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday